the language of light was one of my topics. I think I talked about it for about 3 hours.
Wow.
And talking about the fact that these hieroglyphs, this language of light, which I kind of touched on earlier tonight, it's all about the shape, the way that they encode these particular glyphs into the actual stone, into sandstone, for example, creates these higher level frequencies. Now, let's take a look at sandstone for a minute, right? So there's a lot of sandstone being used in ancient Egypt, especially for the hieroglyphs. Now, they're carved into granite as well. We'll talk about that in a second. But sandstone has a resonant frequency of about 8,000 kilohertz. And then because of the electromagnetic field that these ancient sites are sitting on top of, and the way that the ancient Egyptians knew how to harness energy into the stone, they could amp up that frequency to about 16,000 kilohertz. And then what happens from there, it turns, the stone itself turns into a frequency that can even be used for communication. So we're talking about turning sandstone, rocks, into communication devices.
Right.
And now you're carving a glyph onto that sandstone, which hieroglyphs can convey a complete ideology. One hieroglyph can convey a complete understanding of something. It doesn't mean just one word. A glyph can mean many things. Even if you look at, for example, the glyph for Om, right? The little 3, it looks like with a little squiggle on the side, the Om glyph. It doesn't mean a letter or a word. It means it's a complete ideology, complete understanding. And some of these hieroglyphs have the same exact purpose. So you're taking these glyphs and you're etching these stories with double entendre meanings into sandstone on top of electromagnetic active areas. Now you're creating frequencies that allow this communication or this light language to begin to work. And the person that has the capability of tapping into this or understanding what the energy they're picking up and discerning it through the body now can communicate through this language of light. It's a very powerful way of communicating. And now in these modern days, we use emojis. So we've got the downgraded version of the glyphs. We're back to hieroglyphs again, but it's just in emojis.
We have the English language, and I know you're a well-educated man, so I don't want you to be biased with this question. We have the English language, proper English, what we've been taught in school, and we have slang, Billy. Now with slang, with the English language, you go in the dictionary, like let's say, I just want to use the word, let's use the word nigga. It has a definition for the word nigga. Now in slang, one word starts to mean 7, 8 different things depending on the emotion in which you say it, the intention behind it, or whatever. So if I say nigger, or if I say nigga, or if I say nigga, or if I say nigga, or it's like I can say it like so many different ways. And this is only slang. Only slang will do this. The proper English does not do this. It has a definition, and that's what that word means. Slang allows one word to mean so many different things in terms of connecting with who we were in antiquity and connected with light language and connected with who we are. What do you think aligns more with that, slang or English, proper English, if that's the right word?
Well, a lot of people around the world look down on slang. They look down on it as if it's something that is inappropriate or is a low-level language and only poor people or thugs use this. That's actually a misconception. And I'm glad you brought this up. That's a misconception. Slang, or quote unquote what they call ebonics, right, in our modern idiom, is one of the most difficult things to learn on the planet. One of the most difficult.
That's facts.
The fact that we can speak like that is showing the world and the universe the level of knowledge and understanding that we're able to convey utilizing remix, change, or even just an energy level output of a word or a phrase, and giving a person a completely different understanding of what we're trying to convey to them based on what we're saying, how we're saying it, what we change it to, and even the same word being used over and over again, but with a different type of energy behind it. And so it's one of the hardest things to learn. There's been many movies that kind of make a play off of this as a comedy, like trying to keep up with what a person really means when they're using slang versus what, what's real, what they consider to be normal King's language. And it's like they're corny because they just can't get it, right? Mm-hmm. And so we see this comedy played out over and over again in Hollywood movies. But the fact that we as a people can do this and do it so skillfully and artistically, it's really a tribute to our high level of intelligence. Mm-hmm. Because it's not something that's easy to pick up. If you grew up in a civilization or a society like a Europe or somewhere else in the world, and you start to hear these ebonics, and you just can't pick up on it. But what's interesting is if you go somewhere else in the world where you've run into people like us, all of a sudden they can begin to pick up on it pretty quickly. I've done this. I've been around the world dozens and dozens of times. I've been everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so it's really interesting to see how some people can get it and some people just can't get it. Yeah. The slight inflections, the slight energy changes, and the shift in the voice and the way the word is said and spoken, the amount of force or the less force behind it, and how we remix and change things around, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. And so I love the fact that we can do that because it shows that we really have our own separate language. It's almost like, Haitians have Creole. So they have their version. They took French and turned it into Creole, the same exact thing. Sac passe, all my Haitians out there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it's really incredible. We have that capability.
Yeah, I always thought it was fascinating. I remember one time speaking by the name of Bobby Hemmett, when he was talking about it, he said that it's our inferiority complex that can't see the greatness and things like that we do. Mm-hmm. If it was any other race, he said if it was any other race who came up with something like system like that, they would be considered geniuses. So I just keep that in mind. I just keep that in mind, and I just think that it's absolutely fascinating. Let me ask you this, Billy. In terms of manifestation in the ancients and how they did their thing and how we do our thing, they had a lot of gods for different things. Mm-hmm. They had a god for fertility. They had a god for when the brothers wanted to get erect. They had a god for health and prosperity. We have this one god where we just call him this one god for everything. And those who are in, let's say, the new age or the this new movement that's resurrecting old information, like you, let's say for you, for example, Billy, you would just tap into the vibration of what you want to accomplish. You'll say, I want to be wealthy. You'll feel the vibration of wealth before you even have it, so you can bring it to you. Do you think that? What do you think about that form of manifestation versus calling on the god of prosperity, Latchme? I call on Latchme versus Billy Carson. He doesn't call on Latch. He don't call on anybody. He just taps into a feeling. So what do you think about tapping into a feeling versus calling on a god, Billy?
That's a good question. So if you look at the ancient past, you'll see that, like you said, there were always these multiple gods, this pantheon of gods in all these different cultures.
Right.
But what the elite of the elites didn't tell the people is that they had the power inside of them.
Okay.
So you got the people to begin to give their energy to these outside sources in order to try to manifest their reality. And in most cases, it just didn't really work the way that they wanted it to. Because at the end of the day, they still had to bring them offerings. They still had to do the work and the labor and everything else. Still had a pretty rough life. Now, the benefit to the elites or these quote unquote gods or these high level priests was the fact that they kept the people coming to them to give them their tithes, give them their offerings, bring them their fresh food, because they would kill these cattle and the cows and lambs and bring it to them. Right. And when I take people to Egypt, I show them the storehouses where they would store this food at these ancient temples. It was their meat to eat. They were bringing food to these people because these people were damn sure not going to go hunting, okay?
Right,
they weren't going to buy anything either. Right. They've manipulated the population in a way to call on all these deities and make all these offerings, and they would bring all their corn, their fresh harvest, their best harvest of apples, or whatever it was that they had to bring. And they would bring these harvests, these as offerings, and this was these people's food. And that food was so abundant, it actually even turned into wealth. And so I show people this when I take them to Egypt. This was all really a scam. So getting them to relinquish their power to outside sources was a trick of the mind that they utilized on people. The real truth is the way you said, I do it and you do it. We get into the feeling of abundance. We get into the feeling of manifestation of what we're trying to bring into our reality. And when we get into that emotion of it and believe that it's done before it's even done, that is the true power that exists in every single person walking this planet, probably even throughout the entire multiverse. We have this power, and we can bring our reality into existence through getting into a certain mind state, a mental state, not by relinquishing our power to the outside, but taking a journey to inner space and tapping into our inner power on the inside and accessing that portal. And when we learn how to master that, that's when our reality becomes easy to manifest. Individually, we are all creating our own reality tunnel. As a whole, we're collectively creating reality.
By Compendium of the Emerald Tablets by Billy Carson.